All right, so everyone welcome.
In progress.
Oh, yeah, okay, so everyone welcome to Kol Shira in partnership with Breslov.org and of course Yeshiva Teres Shimon. We wish Rabbi, our dear Rabbi Chaim Kramer, he should have he's doing so much for Klal Yisrael all his life. He should have a Chag Kosher V'Sameach with all of us and all of our listeners and all of those that are participating with our followers and so on and so on. Okay, so it's very exciting now. It's Parshas Tzav. We discuss all the different karbanos, and it's interesting. We start off with the carbon oila. Why the carbon oila do we start off with? And Rashi says that there's ein tzav ela bezirus. You have to be very careful to do the mitzvahs. You have to be very zoros. You have to be zoros, right? You have to be zoros. It's in line with making the matzahs, right? You have to be zoros also. Then it becomes chometz, right? Same idea. Okay, the carbon oil we know is given. It was brought when someone had a wrongful thought, right? A wrongful thought. All the Sfarim bring this down that we have in our head we have 7 different openings, right? We have 7 different openings, right? We have 2 eyes and 2 nostrils, 2 ears and a mouth. Makes 7, right? 7 openings, okay? And but however now and we know Chazal tell us, and the Chavetz Chaim wrote a lot about this, and all the Sfarim write about it. All of the openings that we have in our senses and our head are able to be closed. For example, we have ear lobes. So if someone is speaking to you lashon hara, or someone is something you don't want to hear, so you can close your ears. You can close your ears. That's why you have the soft part of the ear, right? If something has a foul odor, so then you can pinch your nose. You can close your nose, and that's great. Okay. Something you don't want to see, of course, you just close your eyes. No problem. Right? If there's let's say a wind and sand blowing at you, so you close your eyes, nothing will go in. Right? And then you have of course the mouth. The mouth, you can close the mouth anytime, right? And it's always siyag malachach mashtika. Chazal tell us that, right? The sign of a wise person is they keep quiet, because as long as you don't speak, they think you're smart, right? Person open up his mouth and then
double protection on the mouth.
Double protection, right? You have the teeth also. The teeth and the excellent. That's true. Excellent. Yeah, so we're going to talk about it, but excellent. You mentioned that. Excellent. Okay, so Rashi brings down from Rabbi Shimon that you have to be careful for the chesron kiss, right? Chesron kiss. What does he mean by chesron kiss? Why does Rashi bring this down? Lashon zehirus only over here, not any other place. So there's a lot of talk about that. But the most important thing is to understand that we don't really have a defense for our thoughts, right? Thoughts come into our head. We don't really have a defense. Although we learned over the years, and it's actually in Likutei Halachos, in Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, it's in Halacha Hey, where Rav Nosson brings down from the Zohar, and that actually we have three defenses in our mind. We know the mind has four compartments in it, right? There are three of them are that are the lines of defense for bringing in impure thoughts, impure things into the mind, and that's Chochma, Bina, and Das. Chochma, Bina, and Das. So in other words, we can always think things through. Most of the time, the people don't think things through, right? They don't think. The whole idea, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu institute this idea that we bring karbonos and it's an animal? You ever think of that? Why an animal? Why should it be an animal? It's very simple. Because a person that acts on impulse, right? A person that acts on impulse and doesn't think things through, right? He just acts. He feels, this is what I want to do, and he just does it. But he doesn't think it through. What's going to be the repercussion if I'm doing that? So that means if the person just acted on impulse, that means he acted the same way an animal acts, right? An animal sees something and it lunges for it. It doesn't make calculations of what's going to be what's going to be the outcome, right? The cause and effect. What's going to be the cause and effect? It doesn't think of that. And so because the person wasn't thinking, so therefore the HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, so now bring the animal. And then we know, like we learned last week's parsha, mikem, you have to bring the animal. It has to be mikem. What does it mean, mikem? And Rashi brought over there the fact that it has to be yours. And he gave the example of Adam Rishon. Right? Adam Rishon, the same way, when Adam Rishon brought his carbon, he brought a carbon from his own. And what do you mean he brought it from his own? Because there was no one else there. But we spoke about last week, and we'll speak about it again. It's very important to understand. Adam Rishon brought the carbon. He didn't steal because Adam Rishon did tshuva. Right? Adam Rishon did tshuva. If you remember that, we learned that idea. Adam Rishon did tshuva. Now, if you do tshuva, and the animal gets slaughtered, so the animal is very happy about that because then the animal knows that it's going to get elevated. And everything wants to always be elevated. Of course, the animal wants to be elevated. So if the person does tshuva and the animal is slaughtered and he does tshuva and he gets a kapara and then the animal gets elevated, that's a gewaldik. But if the person doesn't do the tshuva correctly, so then, unfortunately, the animal, he's stealing the nefesh of the animal. Because now the animal says, hey, what's going on here? You killed me, but I didn't get elevated. So that's the steal. So the whole important thing now, why, and we learn out from all the karbanis of the chatas and the asham, everything is learned out from the carbon oila. Oila is the same. Where was the carbon oila done? It was done in the north. Why was it done in the north? That's the place of the klipas. That's the place of the satan, and so on and so on. One of the reasons was when we were in the desert and we didn't have the bris and we didn't have a bris milah all those years while we were in the desert. Why? Because it was the northerly wind. It was the northerly wind, and because it was the northerly wind, it's damaging. It causes sin and so on. Therefore, we bring the carbon has to be brought in the north. Interesting idea. Why does it have to be brought now? And we also know on the mizbeach, the fire would burn straight up. But as the nighttime came, if any of the parts of the animals fell off the mizbeach, sometimes they fell off. So the kohen had a mitzvah to put it back on. And then at night, the fire would actually burn towards the north. The fire, instead of burning straight up, the fire would actually burn towards the north. Why was that? Was one of the miracles that we had in the base of Mikdash. Why was that? Because again, the side of the north is where you have all of the impurity. That's where the Satan and the Satan's wife, the Layla, whatever, is over there, and then therefore it goes on the fire would burn on the north from the karbanis, and therefore would cool down the fire from the Yetzer Hara, from the Satan from the north. That's an idea of the parsha. There's so many beautiful things. Time is short. Of course, it's Erev Yom Tiv, so we can discuss now a few things let's talk about a few things about Yom Tiv. This week, of course, we have the mitzvah of the bedikas chometz, and the bedikas chometz is a very beautiful mitzvah. Why is it a beautiful mitzvah? Because the Gemara speaks about it. B'chayrin of isdakim, you have to look in the cracks and the crevices, and the whole reason why we put out the 10 pieces of bread is because we know that everyone cleaned their houses so well, you're not going to find any chametz. Maybe you won't find chametz. But wait a second, I made a bracha. If you're making a bracha and you did a good job cleaning, so then and you don't find any chametz, so you made a bracha levatola. So therefore we put out 10 pieces of bread. 10. Interesting, why is it 10? Right? Because we know that there are the Esther spheres. We have the 10 levels of holiness from the side of holiness. But we also know that the Balatanya brings it in Tanya that there is what's called the Esek Kisrin de Misnabusa. The Esek Kisrin de Misnabusa are the 10 crowns of impurity. Now we have the 10 crowns because we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world creates everything. Zelu Mazeh Osa Elikim. Hashem keeps everything in the world balanced. So if there's 10 levels of purity, there's going to be 10 levels of impurity. Of course, everything is always going to be balanced. So why do we do 10 pieces? Because again, we're trying to touch the koyach, we're trying to weaken the koyach of the other side. We're trying to weaken the koyach of the other side. The main point is really the whole avodah is to take out the chometz of the leiv. The chometz of the leiv. There were big tzaddikim, the Kedushas Levi, for one, he would always open his shirt and he would try to find the chometz. When he was doing the bedika, he would try to find the chometz in his heart. They took it bamis very seriously, the tzaddikim. They wanted to find the chometz shabalev. That's the sa'ar shabeisa. That's we're talking about the sa'ar shabeisa. That's the rising agent in the dough. So Pesach we know is very interesting. Pesach we know that chometz is also b'mashu, right? B'mashu. Anytime during the year, right? There's always different shiurim, right? So we all know of batul b'shishim, right? You have a big pot of chicken soup cooking, and a splotch of milk is splattered into the pot, right? So normally you say that's batul b'shishim, right? You have a big pot and then a little thing, so that gets swallowed up in there, and it's okay. But that doesn't work like that when it comes to Pesach. When it comes to Pesach, even the chometz is also b'mashu bal yirah bal matzah. You're not supposed to see the chometz. You're not supposed to find the chometz. It's very, very interesting how this works. Okay, now why is it like this? That's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu it takes care of us so much so when it comes to the Leil HaSeder. Where the Leil HaSeder comes in, we get the greatest levels. We get the greatest levels. We get the Shara Hamid from the same thing like Shavuos time. We get that right at the Leil HaSeder. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives it to us. He shows us who we can become by giving us the mitzvah of Vigalta Levincha Bayoim Ahu. We know the famous, the whole important thing of the Seder is all about the children. It's all about the children. We want to get the children to ask. And that's what the whole Manishtana is about. And you're supposed to give out different things, and you're supposed to make the Seder interesting in order to get the children interested. Why is it so important to get the children interested by the Seder? You don't have this mitzvah any other time. You don't have this mitzvah any other time that you have to worry about getting the children. You always there's always a mitzvah. There's always a mitzvah of Talmud Torah. You have to teach it. We say in Kriyashma, right? You have to teach your children all that. But here's a special mitzvah. Why? Because this time, when we have this time, this is a time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us a special siyata d'shmaya. We get a special siyata d'shmaya to tell the children what they need to hear in order to give them what they need in order to be ma'aminim in Hashem, and of course to understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves every Jew. So the question was, again, why is it so important on this night? Why this night do we have to do this? Because this is the night HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose for us to do this. So we have every day the mitzvah, we have to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, right? We say Kriyashma every day. There are 3 passages in Kriyashma, right? We have Shema Yisrael and Vahafta. Then we have Vahaya, and then we have Vayomer Hashem, right? Vayomer Hashem is the whole thing is talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we speak about Yetzias Mitzrayim at least 3 times every day. Every day we have a mitzvah of Tzipah Yetzias Mitzrayim. Every day we remember Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. Every time. But why is it so important on Pesach that we don't even have a mashu? That was the question. Why can't you have the mashu? I'll tell you why. Matzah has 2 properties, the Zohar says. Matzah is the achlasa d'sfasa and the achlasa d'hemenusa. It has 2 principles to it. It has the medicinal principle to it, and it has in it emuna food. It's the same idea of the man that we ate when we went out of Mitzrayim. When we went out of Mitzrayim, we took the ugais matzahs. These were the ugais matzahs that we took out. Some say that's why we have the round matzahs, because it's ugais matzahs. It was ugais, round. So that's why some people say that we have the round matzahs and we don't use the square matzahs, because the whole thing is round. The whole thing is is round. I heard a beautiful idea that they said, why was it that when originally records came out, they came out round. They came out round, right? They were round. And he wanted to record something. It was recorded on the round record, right? And then later on, they came out with the cassette, right? They came out with the cassette, and you were able to record on the cassette. So they say like this: the round matzahs is the way that we can understand that it was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was recording everything, and that was the ugais matzahs. But later on, things developed and became square, and that's why they came up with the square matzahs. It's a cute idea, very cute idea. But understanding this idea, very, very important. It's very important to understand that the same way, if a person's not well, chas v'sholom, if a person's not well, so they have to make sure that person stays away from anything that can get the person sick, chas v'sholom, right? The person is not well and he's recovering, so then you have to make sure that he doesn't get an infection, right? You have to keep him away, right? Keep the person in quarantine. Right? He can't have anyone coming in, and he can't be exposed to anything, because if he does, it can be detrimental to his health. This is how Pesach is. This is why Pesach is different than all the other Yom Tovim. This is why it's different than any other time in the year. Why? Because this is the time that we went through the winter, and we went through it, but people fell to whatever tivus that they had during the winter time. But now we're coming to the Chodesh HaAviv. Right? Why do we have in the year? Right? We just had Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Right? Today's the 11th day. Today's the 11th day of Nisan. Baruch Hashem. Today we read the Parshas Hanasi. Was the Parsha from the holy Shevet of Asher. Today we Palkiel ben Acharon. He was the Nasi from Shevet Asher. So that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you, Kindle, you can't have even a little bit. Because even a little bit now, I'm giving you the emunah right now. I'm filling you up with emunah. And you're getting healed. And therefore you can't be infected. You can't get infected with the chometz. Stay away from the chometz. Even a little bit can get the infection in. You have to make sure. That's why during the year, nothing else is ever, we never have anything like this, that something's asa b'mashu. You can't even have a little morsel. Why not a morsel? Because the same way we understand, if a person can get an infection, if there's a little microcosm that comes into the person, he breathes it in, someone coughs on him, so then he can develop that problem. So therefore the Torah is telling us, make sure you don't have anything to do. Make sure you don't have anything to do with that. Now, to explain the importance of Pesach and all the minhagim of Pesach, let's understand that for a second. There's a very, very famous story. I may have said it before, I don't know, but it's worthy to say it again. There was the holy Naidi Yehuda. Right, Rabbi Yehuda, you heard of Naidi Yehuda, the holy Naidi Yehuda. He lived at the same time as the Maralmi, Prague, in that area, that time. The holy Naidi Yehuda. Okay, the Naidi Yehuda was a lamdim, a genius, a goin shebetayret like shein kamay. Okay, he had a student, one of his prize students, that unfortunately left Klal Yisrael. And he became a big galach. He became a galach. Could you imagine? The holy Naidi Yehuda had a student that left and became a galach. Unbelievable. I thought about this story. It was one of our neighbors was over today, and we were discussing the minhag, and that's why I thought of this story. So I'm just saying it over now because it's a very ridiculous story. So this is something that bothered the Naidi Yehuda tremendously. It really, really bothered him. How is it possible that I have a student that went from being my prize student to becoming a big galach, a priest? and he wanted to be able to have the opportunity to meet him, but he said, I'm not going to go into he's not going to go into the church. Chas v'sholom, the Noda B'Yehuda is not going to go into the church. So his students all knew, everyone knew that this bothered the Noda B'Yehuda tremendously. So they figured out that this Galach, this Yid, he goes out he had a little marpeset, he had a little porch that he would go out every morning at a certain time, and he would look around, and then, and he wants to see like who's passing by and so on. So they told the Noda B'Yehuda, if you go past there at this time, he may see you, and then you may get to talk to him. So the holy Noda B'Yehuda said, of course I'll do that. So he went the first day, and he didn't see him. He went the second day, he didn't see him. He went the third time. And then the Galach saw his Rebbe, his illustrious Rebbe. He saw him dressed in his beautiful, his clothing of honor. And he saw his Rebbe, and he ran down, and he went and he split to talk to his Rebbe. So the Noda B'Yehuda looked at him, and he looked in his eyes, and he said to him, my dear student, how did you go from being a tremendous, an Eloi, a big Lamdin? How did you go to become a Galach? So he says, Rebbe, I want to tell you what happened. I'll tell you a story what happened. It was many years ago, this story that happened. And this is what he said. He said it was Pesach, it was Chalamoid, and a lady came to your office, and she had a question about a certain kugel. She made something, we'll call it a kugel, I don't know. She prepared something, and she wasn't sure of something, what she used exactly, or what was used or wasn't used. She wasn't exactly sure what it was. So this fella, this Galach, was the one that went to speak to her. So he said, okay, I'll go talk to my Rebbe now, go talk to the Noda B'Yehuda, and I'll ask him what his psak is, what you should do with this kugel. Okay? So he goes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says like this. He says, really, Mikra Adin, for what you're explaining to me, I could be Matzah the kugel. You can be Matzah the kugel. But, because it's Pesach, this is what the Noda B'Yehuda said, because it's Pesach, it's better to be Machmer, right? Because again, the problem that we have that it's Aser b'mashu. So, because of that, I would say to her that she should be Machmer, and not use the kugel. Prepare something else. Obviously, this person was not a person that she wouldn't have anything to eat and so on. Okay. So he comes back to the lady, and he tells the lady, the Noda B'Yehuda said it's better that you're machmir and you shouldn't have it. She said, okay, fine. It's fine. So here, you throw it out to me. Fine. Now, this fella looked at this kugel, and he had a nice, he said, this looks geschmack. This is a geschmack kugel. And he's thinking, he makes a calculation. He says like this, the Rebbe said that really it's mutter. But he said it's better to be machmir. But he didn't say it's chometz. So he ate the kugel. He tells his Rebbe, I ate the kugel. I ate it. And it was delicious, he said. He said, but that night, when it came to saying Kriya Shema Lamita, he said, the Yetzer Hara said to me, you were eating chometz on Pesach. You're such a nice fav. You ate chometz on Pesach, and now you're going to say Kriya Shema Lamita? So he said, I didn't say Kriya Shema Lamita. And then he came to me again in the morning when he came for Shachris. Same thing. And then one thing led to the other. No mincha, no this, and then he didn't go to learn, and then this, and he fell away. And then why? And then why are you so careful about what you're eating if you ate chometz on Pesach anyway? Yeah, you know, you chayiv misa anyway. You can have chorus anyway. Who cares? So then he says, and this is where I fell to. This is where I fell to. This is where I fell. So of course he wound up doing tshuva. The night of Yehuda explained to him that really we understand that like we learned so many times, Hashem is always recreating the world, and we're always new, and we can always come back. We learned these things so many times. Reb Nosson writes so many times, and Rabbi Nachman, that the whole idea, the main ikar of Ramuna is to believe in Chiddush HaOlam. To believe in Chiddush HaOlam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always renewing the world. The world is always a new place. The world is always something special. The world is not the same world as it was a minute ago as it is now, especially from not yesterday and today. And we can always change. We can always change. And where do you see the greatest thing with Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu was able to convince the Rebbeinu Shalom to instead of wiping out Klal Yisrael, he was able to convince the Rebbeinu Shalom to give us the Mishkan. To give us the Mishkan. And the Mishkan was built in that way that everybody gave their Matzah shekel for the Adonim, for those beautiful supports. And then the Kuroshim went into the Adonim. And then it said why is the Torah called the Kroshim the Atzei Shitim Oimdim? Atzei Shitim Oimdim. The Zohar Kodesh says explains very well. Why is it Atzei Shitim Oimdim? Because that was a tikkun. That was the tikkun. Everything in the Mishkan was a tikkun for all time. And he says that it is called Atzei Shitim because of the two trees. Which two trees? The Eitz Hadas Tov Ra and the Eitz Chayim. Those two trees of Adam and Chava, that they made the mistake, and why they get thrown out of Gan Eden? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want them to eat from the Eitz Chayim. That's why they got thrown out. And he says that's why in the Mishkan everything was a repair. He says why were there 11 coverings over the Mishkan? There were 11 coverings over the Mishkan. There were some fine ones there was some fine woven the chelis and the argomon that were very, very finely woven, and they were the coverings. And then we had the izim. And then we had the skins from the izim that were very thick. And then we had the skins of the tachash. We spoke about the beautiful tachash. That was a special animal that only lived at that time. The tachash lived at that time. Who was the tachash? And this you could tell over at the Seder. This is beautiful. Who was this tachash? This tachash, Rashi tells us, that this was an animal that had 7 colors. And the animal had one horn. And the animal was a very freilich animal because it was so pretty. It looked so good. It was such a pretty looking animal with all the colorings, right? And today, what do they call that animal? The unicorn. The kids love the unicorn, right? They don't understand it. That was the skin of the tachash that was used on the Mishkan. That was the unicorn. Unbelievable. I'm telling you, tell that to the kids at the Seder, they'll be amazed. Right? Because all the little girls, they love the unicorn. They love it. So you tell them that this is the unicorn, was the same unicorn that was connected to the Mishkan. Unbelievable. When we were in Mitzvah, when we were in the desert, after we came out of Mitzrayim. Okay, let's talk about the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer. Right? We can have the mitzvah, right, the second night of Pesach. In Eretz Yisrael, it's already Chalamoid, right? In Chutz La'aretz, it's gonna be the second night of Seder. Then the question is, when do you count? Do you count in the shul? Do you count at the Seder? Okay, then whatever your minhag is, continue doing whatever your minhag is, okay? And if you don't know your minhag, you can ask your local Orthodox rabbi what he recommends. That's what I recommend you to do, okay? But either way, to know the idea of the Sfira is, right? So we said the first night of Pesach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us that Gilui. He gives us this big revelation of everything. But then right away on the second, right away he takes it away from us. And that's why we start saying right away the same Talmud Matar. right? We say the same talamata. We start saying right away. Why do we say it right away? Why do we say it right away? We say it right away because we need the tal shel tchiyah. Right, the tal shel tchiyah. We need that right away, the tal shel tchiyah. So that's why right away after the seder we start saying the same talamata. We need that tal of life that gives us the life. Right? We know that and then there's all the questions. If you forgot to say it, if you did forget to say it, you said Matzah or you didn't, and then these are all lebedika things in Shulchan Aruch. It's meridika things, and then the Shulchan Aruch discusses why wouldn't you start introducing it already at the nighttime? So Shulchan Aruch says very important, very time to understand. Not every time people go to Ma'ariv. Not every time people go to Ma'ariv. And then why don't we do it in Shachris? Because some people come late. Some people come late to shul. But they figured by Musaf time. When it comes to Musaf time, so of course people will be there, and that's why the Gabbai, he makes the Akroza, he makes the announcement, and he says the same Talamotar, okay, for those that say it, right, Minig Ashkenaz, in Eretz Yisrael, Minig Ashkenaz, they do say it. In Chutz La'aretz, Marid Atol, right? Marid Atol. They say Marid Atol in Eretz Yisrael. They do say Marid Atol, but they don't say the Marid Atol. I don't think in America, in Ashkenaz, do they? Rabbi Yehuda? They don't have it.
Ashkenaz doesn't.
Yeah, but in Eretz Yisrael they do. In the Ashkenaz Siddur, in Eretz Yisrael, they will say, okay, very good. You have the same Talmud, right? Okay. Anyway, either way, there's so many beautiful things that to recognize. Every time we're counting the Sfira, we're counting up. We're doing like the first day is Chesed Shebechesed, the second day is Chesed Shebigvura, Chesed Shetferes, and so on. We count the 7 weeks, 7 Shabbosim, right? And that's how we get to the 49th day. And Shavuos we know is the 50th gate, which is the 50th gate, which is connected to Keter. Unbelievable things. It was Shavuos, but you have to count and you go regularly to do that. Now remember, when we were in the desert, when we went out of Mitzrayim, we went out of Mitzrayim, and we were on the lowest level. And we brought ourselves up to the 49th level. And then we had Kabbalah Satorah. And realize something. The Sphira was able to bring us up to that level, to be able to come to Kabbalah Satorah to such a high level, from such a low level. We were even Avodah Zarah in Mitzrayim. And we know that when we came to Har Sinai, everybody had a refuah, no matter what happened to them. No matter what was missing on their any limbs or ivarim that they were missing, it didn't make a difference. Everyone got a what do you call it? Everyone got a refuah. Everyone got a refuah. The Sfarim say that's why when you have here Kabbalah, when you're hearing Kriya Satorah, which is another mini Kabbalah Satorah. So when you're listening to Kabbalah Satorah, when you're listening to the Torah, that's a mini Kabbalah Satorah. And therefore, if you have in mind that you need a refuah, just listening to the Torah. So you could say HaKadosh Baruch Hu the same way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we got the Torah, we had refuahs and Yeshuas. So too, I'm listening to the Torah now again. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want a refuah, a Yeshua. And it's a very important tefillah. A person can do that, and it can be piled big Yeshuas. Okay, so really, the whole idea, again, when it comes to the Seder, the whole idea is not to be makbid and they're not to make crazy the kids. The whole idea is to let the kids be and just to get the story in, to tell them the story, to tell the kids the story and make sure they understand. And to see when you say the Seder, you're supposed to say the Seder and say the Haggadah loudly, b'kol ram, right? It makes big tikkunim. For a person, if he says the words loud, if he says the words out loud with a cheshek, because then the kids see that we have a cheshek for Yiddishkeit, and they see that it's lebedik. Life is lebedik, so of course the children want to be lebedik also, and they see that the Yiddishkeit and is a lebedik a thing, and really there's so much to talk, but the time is short today. The time is short. Do we have any questions? Rabbi Yehuda, Zush, anyone have any questions? Want to say anything? Add anything? No? Don't want to add anything? You want to say something?
No.
No, okay. So let's see. We spoke about the Seder. Okay, so let's talk about the idea when we do Shabbos, because this is Shabbos is Erev Pesach, right? Erev Pesach is Shabbos. So let's talk for 2 minutes on that idea. The different minhagim people have. Right, so people have the different minhagim, right? So Shabbos, we know that we have to have 3 sudas on Shabbos. You have to have 3 sudas on Shabbos. Some people say, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, that some people make 2 sudas on Friday night. But that's not the again, if that's your minhag, go for it. But that's not the most accepted shita. Really, you're supposed to have the sudas in the day. Now the question is, how do you have the sudas in the day? So of course everyone's going to daven early this Shabbos, right? There shouldn't be any 10 o'clock minyanim or 9:30 minyanim or anything like that, because then you're going to come into you're not going to be able to wash and have your suda, right? Especially if you can have it from chometz. Anyone that gets up late, or whatever the case is, so they do have an option to use egg matzah, right? That is an option to use egg matzah. Okay, and especially if your person has children in the house that they know that you're going to give them challah, that it's going to be crumbs all over the place, so then they're not going to be able to clean up, whatever the case is. So of course, then don't do that. Everyone has to know what they have to know your own circumstances, right? Again, it's not always the most preferable thing to use the egg matzah. However, there are poskim that we can be soymach on. Others say that you have the Suda in the morning, right, after davening, and then Shulchan Aruch says you can also have in the afternoon, you can have peiros, you can have shalosh shudas, you can have peiros, you can have fruits, you can have whatever Pesach cakes that you're going to have, you're allowed to eat that, and that can be kaveya Suda like that also. But again, the best thing is if you can come home from davening early. If you can daven with the nates, it's always great to daven with the nates. And then you come home, you make your suda, and then you take a walk for a few minutes outside. You wash again, be kaveya another suda. That'll be your what do you call it? Your shalosh shudas. That'll be the shalosh shudas, and then you water your bench over there. And of course, you can have something in the afternoon again. There's no problem. But again, we're supposed to come to the seder. Remember, you're supposed to come to the seder with the appetite for the matzah. Right? To remember, you're coming to the Seder with the appetite for the matzah. The Seder is an amazing time. Right? The Seder you come to the Seder, and this is the time that you have mamash mitzvahs de'araisa and darabana. Right? It's unbelievable. All these things in such a short time. Number one, you have Tzipa Yetzias Mitzrayim, and you got it to Levincha. That's one mitzvah de'araisa. Right? You have the Kiddush, which is a derabanan, okay? You have the matzah, which is a deraisa. Right? Morah is the derabanan. Right, Morah is the Rabbanan, and then you have, of course, the benching. Benching is a deraisa. Halal is a deraisa to praise the Rabbanan Shalom. Of course, there's so many beautiful mitzvahs that are in the Seder. The most important thing is to come to the Seder and say, Rabbanan Shalom, please, I want to make the Seder something pleasing for you. And not to be so verhitzt, I didn't say it like this or that, or people come to the Seder and it has to be exactly like this, exactly. No. The Seder is just to keep the kids interested. The whole thing is to keep the kids interested. The kids should ask questions, and you should be able to answer the children. That's the main ikka part of the whole Seder. The kids or the entire Seder. That's all about the children, to give over the Messiah to the children. That's the most important thing of the Seder. Okay, so if there's I don't know if you have any other questions, or anyone, you have a question, or you want to say anything, anybody? No? So I want to wish you all a chag kosher v'sameach. It should be mamash a lebedik yom tiv. We should feel, and we should feel the chayres. Mamash, we should feel the chayres. Feel the freedom. Feel the freedom that HaKadosh Baruch Hu freed us. You have to feel like you're going out of Mitzrayim. You have to feel that we're going out. We went out of whatever katnas hadas that we have. We can go out of it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us. It's unbelievable. He just asked the Rebbeinu Shalom. And we have to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give us the siyata d'shmaya in order to know what to say. Again, Erev Pesach, it's important to say the Korban Pesach, right? That's a very big, important thing to do. Also, that we learned many times the Maimer from Rav Shamshin Ashtrapoili, right? The holy Rav Shamshin Ashtrapoili, Hashem Yimkam Damam, that he was murdered, but he taught us, if you say the Maimer, he promises you during the year you'll have a good year, you'll have a successful year, no one will be able to bother you, you'll have everything that you need. What a beautiful, what do you call, promise from the tzaddik. So why not spend the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, go through the Maimer. It's in most of the Haggadahs. Any of the Haimish Haggadahs has the Maimer from Shamshin Ashapali. We learned it together many times over the years, so we all know about it. It's meridic to see the secrets, how everything is so tied in the Torah, how everything is there. So that's the story for Pesach. Everyone have a lovely thank you for joining, and I wish everyone the Chag Kosher Sameach. Okay? Kol Tuv, everybody. Thank you. Kol Tuv.